Hey, happy Wednesday, everyone. Happy 2023, because I haven't seen you yet. It's Wednesday Wisdom Day, as you all know, on Trap Chat Live. And it's the start of Black History Month. Um, very, very pleased, excited, happy, geeked, all of those things to have Dr. Kendra Jason, the founder of Work for Change LLC, as well as a professor of sociology at UNC Charlotte, as well as the COO, okay, of UNC Charlotte, executive fellow for strategic initiatives in the Office of Diversity Inclusion. Yes. Proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Augusta, Georgia native, and all things Black history, Black future. Please, well, first, thank you for coming and for being my first guest of the new year, because we start our new year at Black History Month. Thank you for doing that. But if you wouldn't mind, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. So thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with Trap Recruiter. So again, I'm Kendra Jason. I am a sociologist by trade. I founded a workplace equity consultancy in 2021, where we really go in to help workplaces be better because we spend way too much time at work for it to suck. As of today, on this first day of Black History, I'm starting a new role at UNC Charlotte as the Executive Fellow of Strategic Initiatives. And basically what that means is that I try to make sure they do what they say they go do when it comes to equity inclusion on an institutional level, just to make sure those ideals match up with practices. And so I'm super excited to, talk about, that and the breadth of work that I do with Kirsten today.
Yes, and one thing I did forget, you also host a podcast called, hold on, let me get it right, Jobs and Work with Work for Change. And I was fortunate enough or honored to be a guest on there. I'm getting my years wrong, but it was sometime, and it was a great episode. So make sure you guys go to the website to catch up on not just my episode, but previous episodes. I know some of the guests personally, and this was a fantastic connection that I happened to make way back a few years ago.
I believe.
No, I think it was before that. Like I said, I don't know what year is which. So
COVID, everything is like a haze. I love the podcast. It's really interesting about the podcast because when I started, so the podcast is a branch, if you will, of Work for Change, like the consultancy. And I never thought about doing podcasts. I don't even really listen to podcasts or anything of that nature. That's just my admission. Being on camera is not my thing. And my partner in my work, Chris, she was just like, we could do a podcast episode. And so we did it. And it just became this wonderful medium where I could provide a platform for people to share their experiences about work over their lifetime. Your perspective. Sarah Morgan came on and gave perspectives from human resources, for example. And then the other thing I really like to do is to showcase and highlight small business owners and entrepreneurs, and really talk about, not just the challenges, but how we overcome those challenges and build networks, and, what really encouraged us to branch out, especially as Black people, where entrepreneurship in the traditional way that we think about it, the mainstream way that we think about it, is not an avenue that we typically take. So I really like to just use that platform to highlight all of that stuff.
I love it. And you mentioned again Work for Change on the podcast, and last year that I'm remembering that you just recently celebrated your 1 year, 2 year, anniversary of being in business.
Yeah.
What was it that prompted you to start Work for Change?
Yeah, that's actually pretty easy. So, part of it was COVID. So actually in my professional career, I am an associate professor of sociology at UNC Charlotte. I'm very aspirational, and I was going up for tenure, which is a huge first, big marker. After you get in the academy, if you're tenure track, that's the next big thing. It's a 5-year 5 to 6 year journey traditionally. So I was turning in my packet to get evaluated for tenure. So I was sort of like in this lull when COVID happened, right?
Oh,
And the main thing at COVID is that number one, it forced us to sit down, slow down, and the other thing is like, people became real self-reflective, like, what is my purpose here?
yes.
I was thinking, I only got one life to live. If COVID ain't teach us nothing, it told us, we only have one life to live. And I thought about, what is the impact I want to make on the world? I love doing research on Black workers and minoritized workers and, inequality, trying to make things better in a scholastic, knowledge building way. But I also wanted to touch people and make those suggestions that I had from the research real. And so Work for Change was an avenue that I could get into workplaces, get in front of workers, get in front of management, and help them build the experiences that they want, so people have more job satisfaction, have more retention, and get more compensation, whatever it is the outcome that they want.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned 2020.
Yeah.
Because, I was already doing things, but I'm not going to pretend that the events that happened,
Yeah.
First COVID, and then we use this as a a climax in the broader scheme of things, but for us, for Black people, it really wasn't. And that being the murder of George Floyd, like that seemed to be the opening thing, the opening, and I think a lot of people, especially with the election coming up, that was coming up and everything, people were saying, oh, we're in the midst of a culture shift, and things are getting better, and people are being more empathetic, and people are being better. And there were a lot of calls for people to do DEI work, and there were a lot of calls for people to come and speak, and they were amplifying Black voices, baby. Like they were just like, everything was beautiful. It was like a Tupac song: the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Every day, people were putting Black things on their profile picture, like just black it out, like just black, blackity, black. Okay,
all day Black. Yep.
All day. But do you in your estimation, because like you said, like you have empirical data, you do research, you are also, you are a sociologist by trade, you teach, and you consult with organizations around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, I'm just going to ask you, like, was there really a shift?
There was an ideological shift. And basically what that means is that people started to share an ideal that we should be equitable, right? White people, in short, started to pay attention. Like I should really get on this bandwagon, right? I can no longer kind of, sit on the sidelines. I really need to align my ideology, my principles, my value set with Black Lives Matter, right? Or, anything in that language. So there was an ideological shift. There was not a cultural shift because there were no resources and infrastructure built behind those ideals. And so basically, one of the main things that I do or aim to do at Work for Change is push people to go from ideals into practice. And what's really funny is that, I always say, like, if you sit on your ideals and you don't turn it into practice, you're just maintaining the status quo. Right. And you're getting comfortable in maintaining the status quo. And that's a privilege because you don't have to do anything. Right. And so I just, really want to, push that in order for you or anyone to have a culture shift, that you have to build the infrastructure with resources, time, and compensation behind it in order for the changes to take place.
Woo! Well, okay. So first I got to write that down. You have to build, you have to build the infrastructure.
With resources, time, and compensation.
Resources. RTC. Ooh, for the culture shift to happen. Okay.
That's
I'm going to put that up in a bit, but I want to stay there. I don't want to have people sitting around waiting for me to ask you another question. So I like that. I like what you're saying. So when orgs are coming to you,
Yeah.
What are they? Are they coming for? Are they coming with the infrastructure, the resources, the time, and the compensation? And I'm saying that from the perspective of um, the resources. Some of that is a support, the
Mm-hmm.
time, and I'm looking at this from they're taking time to engage with you, to partner with you, to collaborate with you on the front
Mm-hmm.
end, during and after, whatever
Mm-hmm.
the time frame is. They're respecting your time. They're allowing you to set the timeline and not
Yeah.
saying, yeah, we're just going to have you come in February 15th and give a little talk and
Yeah.
everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then the compensation, not just pay equity internally inside of the organization, but paying you, Dr. Kendra Jason, for your time and your expertise.
Yeah.
Our organizations, like I said, prompted by 2020,
Yeah.
are they coming with those things?
So the first thing is that they don't know, that they don't realize is that's what's going to be required when they reach out to me. Right?
Oh,
They usually reach out and say, we're trying to be proactive. We're trying to educate and be proactive. We're trying to build, some caucuses, some race-based caucuses, or build some policies. So there are a lot of I don't know what the right word is to think. So like allyship kind of language, like we want
yeah.
to do this work, right? And then especially right after 2020 and 2021, that's when organizations were just like, a lot of stuff done happen, and we're a mixed race workplace, and we don't want to like contribute to the harm to our Black members. So what can
Mm.
we do to not contribute to the harm?
Okay, I like that.
Because we know we white and we know we mess up. So what can we do, right? And so I'm gonna have to turn off these comments because
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
no, it's fine because I got distracted. I'm like, what people saying?
Oh,
Um,
that's me. That's me.
no, no, it's good, it's good. And so basically, when we had that first consultation, I was like, what is the issue that you want, and then through the partnership, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that I do, speaking of, is that I always, the people who hire me or are interested in me are always management, executive team, human resources. They're the upper level, and they
Okay.
say, we want you to come in and tackle this, and I'd be like, great. So now what I'm going to do is talk to all your workers and see what they think we should do. Let me see what they think the problem is, right? And so then through a process, I talk to different levels of workers. If it's a small organization, I try to talk to 100%. If it's a larger, I get a sample. And then what I do is connect the two. And I say, okay, this is what management says is the problem. This is what the workers say is the problem. And what's the middle ground? And then how can we build from that point forward? What's really interesting, so I'm a sociologist. I've been studying inequality in work for almost 20 years, right? So this is, the theory into practice. So one thing that is unexpected, this is what happens when you hire a sociologist, right?
Okay.
We don't look at individuals, we look at systems, right?
Right.
We look at processes, right? And the punchline, I'll say, is that a lot of the inequality that is experienced by minoritized workers is because of work process. So how they say, like, you can have a racist, there's racism without races. You can have white supremacy without white people.
Yes.
It's the same thing. You can have inequality without those individual actors, because white supremacy and uh, patriarchy is built into systems of the
Right.
workload. And
Yeah.
so getting at it from a systematic place and helping people understand, like, the way that you design your policy and your procedure and your practice actually is not that they got a whole bunch of racist white people acting stupid. It's the fact that people are just following the rules of the organization, and those rules put your minoritized members, your Black and brown people, at harm.
Yeah. Do you feel like because it sounds like there is some light, just based on the folks who you work with specifically, and
Yeah.
I will say, even I saw some shifts,
Mm-hmm.
but like you said, I hadn't thought of it like that. Those
Mm-hmm.
were ideological, those were
Mm-hmm.
thinking stuff. They weren't really, they weren't culture. They didn't put that into shifting the culture.
Mm-hmm.
We just talked about things more. We just highlighted those things. We just amplified those voices, but we didn't really have a plan
Right.
to
Right.
execute
Right.
on making things better. We just, like you said, we just had an ideological shift. And I'm speaking again, I'm speaking very broadly.
Right.
I don't want to give the impression that organizations are getting everything wrong. So
Yes, exactly.
so what would you say, as it relates to that ideological shift, that organizations that you're working with are getting right?
So the ones I'm working with, so one thing is that, as a small business, you always like business, right? You always like to build those partnerships, honestly, to have income come in. But I don't accept any partnership where I don't feel like it's a genuine effort in the first place, right? The cliche is that you're checking off a box rather than really wanting to go in and put in the effort for institutional change. And so I lost my train of thought. What did you ask right quick?
What are orgs getting right
What are they getting
about?
right?
Yes.
So they are willing to do the work in many
Okay.
cases. Now, the thing is that the work is very frustrating. The work is very slow, and the
Yes.
work doesn't look like what they think it should look like, right? And so they're
Mm.
dealing with a lot of these personal toils because it does require self-reflection. It does require accountability. It does require a shift. And so you can get a culture shift, and there are businesses that I've worked with and just in general that are experiencing some real shifts, right? And how things are being experienced, right? And so just they're doing the work, they're holding people accountable, but they're also not running when it gets hard.
I like that.
Yeah, they're toiling through the struggle that it is difficult. So one thing you made me think about when it's so funny when people when I tell people when I'm in consultation in the beginning, I'm like, we're going for a cultural shift, right? That's
Okay.
the whole point. And they always, it could be an organization of 25 people or
Mm.
or 50 people, and they'll try to focus the whole conversation on 3 people. These 3 people go be in the way. They don't do this. They don't do this. They don't like that. Like, like the centers of the group, right? And I'm just like, no. So what we gonna do? We not gonna focus on those people. I said, what we're gonna do is basically we're gonna change things so it's like a boat that's moving. They go either jump on the boat because everybody else is on board, or they go get left behind, right?
Mm.
And actually just giving people at work permission to not focus on the people that's holding up the process is liberating. They be like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I don't have to like worry about Dan. I don't have to worry about Judy. And I'm like, no, you don't have to worry about Dan or Judy. Like we can still work for this change and not center their voices, which is a part of the process of decentering whiteness or decentering these voices that command the space when they get threatened.
Whew, child.
Mm-hmm.
So yes. Okay. So you talked about, your approach. You talk about decentering. In your description of your company, you talk about a person-centered approach. Can you define for us what that means?
Yeah, so it's basically that, that we're thinking about principles, values, and that's the common denominator, actually. As humans, as community members, we want to value each other. We want to take pride in our work. We want to, be a whole person and have a holistic experience, right? And so really thinking about like the individuals at work and how those individuals, even though they work for you, they're part of a family and a community, and we need to honor all of those things, so just, really just kind of helping management not think so much in big processes at the time, but to think about like your workers are individuals who have very rich lives.
Yes.
And we can honor that, right? And by the processes, whichever led me to your door, is getting in the way of you honoring who they are as individuals and thinking about them as equal. So even if you're a manager and, the typical, you got the manager and the manager and the janitor, you're still 2 equal people who really want the best experience at work and who value each other on a human level.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
And thank you for that explanation.
Yeah.
One of my friends from back home in Philly, Maurice, thanks for watching. He's also an entrepreneur, does a lot, has a podcast that I've
Yes.
also been a part of. But he said it sounds like church, and as you were talking,
Yeah.
that's true
Yeah.
because any place that you're getting, like you said, individuals
Yep.
bringing their values,
Yeah.
coming together for a common goal. Like you're going to have to look at them as the individual first,
Yeah.
and then move up. So yeah, everything it is like church, it is like work, it is like school, it is like
Yeah. It's just an
your community
institution.
organizations. It's like a
Yeah.
meeting of every D9 organization except for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Um,
All day.
all day. All right. So we talked about your person centered approach. We talked about what organizations are getting right in DEI. But one thing that we haven't talked about, and one thing I don't think I've asked any other guest who has come on to talk about to talk about DEI. Let's get to these acronyms because
Yeah.
we love. Listen, I love an acronym. TRAP is an acronym.
Yeah.
Everything I do, I just said, RTC. That's a new acronym I'm adding to my
Yeah.
lexicon.
Yeah.
Um, but we see DEI, we see D and I, we see DEIB, we see DE.
Jedi. We see
Yes,
we
we
see
see.
Bill POC. We see BIPOC. We see
I
POC.
don't want to
We
see them. I
see
don't want to see them. What? I'm not okay. God bless you if that's what you want to be called, but I'm not no BIPOC POC.
no.
Sorry,
So
not me.
so my whole thing on that is that again, language is cultural, right? And
Okay.
a part of that, language is socially constructed, language is cultural. It's going to change over time,
Okay.
right? I'm not satisfied with any of these terms, right? I mean, just
Ooh.
honestly, just like, but you know what? But I don't have anything better to offer either. Like that's
Okay.
just my admission, right? And so, I don't like people of color. I don't like, even though I use it sometimes in my, and sometimes I take on the language of my client because they've done some shared language building, and I
Okay.
want to use that and build. So people of color, I don't really like that because you often hear women and people of color as if people of color aren't women, right? You hear all of these things. You like BIPOC, and now we got Bill POC, and and then it's like, people of color doesn't represent Black experience. It's just, I got problems with a lot of things, right? But I also don't have a better solution at the time. And so so I just say, like, I just follow the language.
Okay.
I criticize it. I try not to actually use too many acronyms. Like, I do like Jedi because
Justice.
who can't, justice,
The J.
education, because
Oh.
it leads with justice. I love that because the thing
Okay.
is, I call DEI like the Holy Trinity, right?
Okay.
Everybody loves DEI now. Like 20 years ago, that wasn't the case, but DEI is a safe place. Like,
Yeah.
any organization, any white person will say DEI and feel comfortable in it. You add justice on there, you're adding accountability, you're adding action, you're adding
Okay.
other things, right? And so I like Jedi in the fact that it really puts justice at the front, and it has a nice little ring to it. As
Yeah.
far as like, how do you say it? One of the things, as far as where the language is moving, I'm really appreciating the incorporation of belonging, right?
Yes.
So we put the B
I
in there.
like the B. I like the B.
I like the B because I'm like, we need to move away from, inclusion is great, moving away from inclusion into a belonging, right? Because it's one thing to include, it's another thing to belong, right? And so just the language is going to move with time. And so I don't have a problem with the language shifting. It is annoying, right? Acronyms are annoying because I'm like, what they saying this week? I don't even, I problematize Latinx, Latin, and I mean,
Yeah.
but I do understand its utility, and I do understand and respect the people who identify by Latinx or choose not to identify for Latinx, because Latinx makes absolutely no sense in a Hispanic community vernacular.
They
They
don't
don't
know
even
what
know.
it is.
It don't, like, you can't even pronounce it in their vernacular. So I'm like, that's just
Right.
another way that white people have just, made, asserted themselves onto another culture so that it makes sense for them. Now, again, I do understand the X and the whole meaning behind the X and why people identify it and I'm supportive of all of that. But when you're talking about language, I'm just like, okay, what's next? you know.
Right. So for the E, because I put it as justice, equity, and diversity and inclusion, but is the E can the E also be education?
Yeah, it could. I've never seen education, but it could be.
Because I do think people need to be educated. Um, we know one of our dear friends, Dr. Keeman Newell Dennis. She cannot stand DEI training.
Yes,
Like,
she cannot. She cannot. She'll let you know too.
she will let you know that she does not do DEI trainings. She does not do diversity inclusion
Mhm.
training. She does not do this.
Yeah.
So in terms of getting back to that,
Hmm.
not necessarily which acronym to use, but
Hmm.
where should our focus really be in talking about getting to this culture shift? Diversity, we all know, like we started to define what these things mean and in context and when used together. So we know that diversity means how many people,
Hmm.
like how many people are
Hmm.
different.
It's
um
numerical. Hmm.
yeah, the equity is, are you giving people the same opportunities, and then are they included, and then that's why we had to add the B, because yeah, you can include me, but if I don't feel
Yeah.
like I belong,
Right.
like we're not getting any work done. So where should there be a focus more so on one of those things, or should we just be talking about culture shift, like, well, what should we be doing?
This is actually a pretty big question.
Oh,
No, it's
that's the recruiter in me asking these 15 sentence questions.
no, it's actually not a bad question at all. But
Okay.
actually, like where where your question leads me in my brain right now is like honestly, equity training is for white people.
Okay.
I mean, it's literally exclusively for white people.
Okay.
To shape and to train and to help them do better, to educate, to lead, to guide, to facilitate,
Yeah.
all of the things, right?
Yeah.
It's funny, and I'm not putting this responsibility on the black and brown people in the room, but the black and brown people in the room could probably lead this workshop that that I've been called into. In a sense, not to diminish the skill
Yeah.
and the expertise that equity consultants bring in, but I say, I'm there for them, as in the minoritized people, as in like I am trying my best to represent your experience and your agency in a way that doesn't put that on you,
Right.
right? Because it's not your responsibility to teach white people anything. It's not your
No.
responsibility to educate white people about anything. Let
No.
them hire me and pay their good money to me to educate them, because you're there to do your work and get your fair compensation as they should, right? And so I really think like just a honest dialogue into who is this training really for, right? And I think and of course that's why our wonderful friend Kimi Rodriguez really has a problem with a lot of this. And on the side note, she'll laugh at this. She calls me the white people whisperer. That's she tagged me with that. Say you're the white people whisperer. You can talk to the white people. and and I was like, you know what, I can, and I get that. I mean,
There's
that's why we
space for
we
all of
need
us.
we need there's space for all of us. My
Yeah.
student asked the other day. She said, do we? She basically the need of Dr. King and Malcolm X. You need them both, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, you do.
It's a
Yes, you
lot of
do.
different. It's a lot of different approaches. Now, I don't mind, and I'm not being facetious when I say this. I don't mind doing that work with white people. I mean, the thing is, if we want to share space with white people, then we must communicate and build together,
Right.
right? Now, the thing is that if you don't want to share space and you're not dependent on white people for your income and for your health insurance and for your well-being, then you don't have to put that work in, right? But for many of us who work and rely on white organizations because our entire country was built on it, we
Yeah.
can't just, in my opinion, you can't just be like, forget them white people, right? Because we
No, you
need to
can't.
work together and build together and share language so that and I'm not hopeless for white people either, and I'm trying not to, of course, think about them in a monolith and all white people are the same. I'm just kind of speaking, generically that, white people have privilege, but there are a lot of a lot of whites and others who really want to do this work well, and they are, right?
Yes,
It's just the
they do try.
majority live in this space of neutrality and ambiguity and not really understanding what role they play in white supremacy and racism in the everyday experiences of their coworkers. And that's where I want to come in and shift, shake things up a bit.
Yes, I appreciate that. And again, I want to reiterate you talking about decentering white people, or the I should say the white people,
Whiteness.
The Donnie and what was it, Don and Judy,
Dan and
Judy. Dan and Judy. You're like, and I think we find that sometimes we center that the bad actor,
yes.
the same way that I tell Black people all the time, because I am in mixed cultural spaces,
yes.
and I'm not just talking about, I'm talking about across even the diaspora, like because I've been because I am again in mixed company a lot of the time. I tell people all the time, like, y'all, I was like, y'all really think white people sit around and think about y'all? Like, they don't be thinking about y'all at all. Like, especially if you're not there. Like, white people are not sitting around worrying about how they can make us miserable. Like, I
said that there is no like white male meeting that happens every year where they get together and
it's not the agenda. What is the agenda? No, we do that. We sit around and say agendas, but how we're going to combat this imaginary thing that doesn't exist. I'm sorry, we got a little bit off.
No, it's actually on. It's actually really on.
I gotta be but yeah. So once again, I'm gonna tell y'all, like I do every Black History Month. So I care about what white people think, because they not think about you on a regular basis. I'm sorry, baby, they just not. You're not on their mind.
But that's how white supremacy works, because the thing is that they don't have to be acting and doing anything for white supremacy to exist. Right. And so, and that's the reason why so many of them don't feel like they're accountable or responsible for combating white supremacy, because they don't see how they're contributing to it just by merely existing, right? And I can't say merely existing, but existing and benefiting from these structures, because it's not just they benefit from it and they don't challenge them. They don't see how, the things, I think I just saw someone said the other day, privilege is not all the things that you have, it's all the things you don't have to deal with. It's really thinking about all of those things you're not dealing with challenges and barriers. Those things are invisible. So it's easy to like deny your privilege because it's designed for you not to see it in the first place.
So I can't spell privilege. I think we're going to learn today.
Privilege in institutions, and I have to write them 15 million times every day, and I always get
I can't spell it. Y'all just going to have to read. Privilege is not, I'm going to just restate it. Privilege is not the things that you have, it's the things that you don't have to deal with. I like that. I'm adding that to my lexicon as well. Appreciate that.
It's true.
Thinking about some of your other work, you are a sociologist. You are also an educator. So you are dealing with students every day. And I'm going to speak to this from someone who I don't even want to call it I don't want to call it a privilege, but I was afforded opportunities because my mother was not only worked a white collar job, but she's taking me to work with her. So I already had an understanding of how things worked in the workplace. My father, I wouldn't call him blue or white collar. He was a salesperson, but he didn't go into an office, but it was still a thinking job, so I don't know what you call that. I guess that is a white collar job. But yeah, so and my father would give me things and pour things into me. And in turn, when I got to the workforce, I always talked to the younger people who were coming up. I had opportunities to partner with groups like Inroads and Year Up, working with veteran organizations of people who had gone back to school even later in life, or people who were entering programs, and working with community colleges and doing career stuff. And then in the the racially monolithic spaces, like I sometimes had to close the door and talk to them one-on-one,
Yeah.
because there are things that only we could understand, in terms of that. And it wasn't, and some of it was because, like I said, they didn't come from households where one or more of their parents, um, you know, had those experiences,
Yeah.
or they had those experiences and they weren't telling them anything.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have found, across the board, is that there's sometimes things lacking in the career development centers
Mm-hmm.
at university. So, I just want to get your take on it. And like I said, it could be from my perspective, not only because of my upbringing, but because of the work, because of the profession that I have, being
Mm-hmm.
a quote unquote subject matter expert in how things are working. But do you think that when someone decides to go to a university to prepare them for work, are they, being adequately prepared for what's next after they walk across that stage?
Oh, so this is a general question about the academy and
Yes.
yes. Um, it depends, right?
Okay.
I know that's an unsatisfying answer. I think I think in general, the training is there, like the what they call the technical training is there, right? How to run
Okay.
a report, how to get the data, how to work on teams, right? The
Yeah.
technical stuff is there. It's the soft skills that so many people get to sort of, skip around, especially in like STEM and business and management. They're not required to take sociology courses or courses on human interaction or engagement or in that way. And so or having to be responsible for thinking about other people's emotions and being compassionate and being empathetic to situations. And so I think in a sense, no, and because it's not holistic in that way.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's hard because of course some institutions do it better than others, some programs do it better than others, but it's so individualized, in that way. Well, I will say one plug I always say is that even though I'm like a 4-year university, I've been 4-year university forever, and so many people want to come to 4-year universities that it would be a great option for you to go to community college for the first 2 years and
Yes.
then transition into a 4-year college. That would be great financially. It give you some great technical skills, that the core, and then you can get, whatever you want to get from that 4-year university as the advanced degree, the more holistic college experience. But it'll definitely save you some money, and I think it's also more grounding as well.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, and I think actually starting at a community college does open up that perspective. I taught at community college. I taught at Wake Technical Community
Okay.
College in Raleigh for a few years, and having your majority be identified as working class or working poor. You hand out an assignment and be like, oh, I don't have a computer at home, right?
Right.
Or or I come here straight after work and
Mm-hmm.
then I have to go home and go to my second job, right?
Right.
So taking those type of things into consideration, again, thinking about a student as a whole person and not just
Mm-hmm.
in the academy. Some of my colleagues describe when they talk about their students, they call them kids. I love my kids. My kids, this, and that. And I know they're coming from a place of like, showing that they care about the students and that they build this relationship. But I think in framing it as kids, you're not really thinking about them as fully grown, functioning adults who are dealing with all the things, if not more, than you're dealing with. Because they're not kids, they're full-fledged adults. And that doesn't mean you don't have to be 36 either. You could be 18 or 19 and still managing a lot. And so that was a long-winded answer, but I think it could happen, but I think it just doesn't happen as much.
Okay. So then I'm going to ask you, what do you, as someone who works in the academy, what do you need from us?
Who's us?
Meaning the recruiters, the HR people, the organizational design folks, the DEI people, the technical
Yeah.
leaders, the hiring managers. Like, what do you need from us?
Well, I hope this is answering your question, but it's just what I want to say right now. One thing I really want to focus on is like wellness for students, like
Oh,
wellness in your job. Like, why don't we center wellness more so that people can produce, so that people can feel good, so that people can have community, so that people can have higher job, satisfaction. We focus so much on the productivity and like, again, like, and I think that's the humanistic part. Like, we build cultures where people are encouraged to hide their home life, their family life, hide their illnesses, their chronic illness, hide their, and believe me, I know people don't want to disclose everything, and that's your own business. But when we create cultures where people can only be thought about as a worker and how they can contribute to your bottom line,
Woo.
and you don't center wellness, it's so much gets lost, so much value of an individual, of a human being, of a, gets lost. And I think it doesn't soften people. It actually, I think, helps them build better, because in my graduate training, I had mentors who centered my wellness. Like, oh, you a single parent? Okay, so how about you work from home today? I trust that you'll do the remote work. This before remote work was cool. This was
Right.
this is back in 2008 when remote work wasn't cool, right? I
Right.
trust you. I trust you to do the work. That's
Yes.
wellness, right? I'm going to take away your commute time. That's wellness, right? I'm going to take away the burden of you thinking that if you ask your boss for something that you need, that makes you look weak. That's wellness, right? And I just
Yeah.
think so, because that was instilled in me. Thank you, Jennifer Kraft Morgan. But because that was instilled in me, that's how I think about and approach everything with my students and with my team members, because I want them to see, like, your employer or your authority figure can care about you, and you can still do really good work.
Yes. Yeah, I've definitely been fortunate to have,
Yeah.
and that's where, and this is where I always push back, because I do always push back on this notion. I'm going to say some good. I see a lot of goodness, and I do see that culture shift from what
Mm-hmm.
my parents
Mm-hmm.
dealt with in terms of wellness. Like, that was not, nobody cared. Like I said, like some of the times I was at work with my mother was because I had a day off and I had to go somewhere,
Yeah.
or because I
Yeah.
was in trouble,
Yeah.
and she was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're not staying in the house with your stuff. No, you can come.
Yeah.
You can come here." So there was sometimes, not as much, but yeah, sometimes that was the case. Or, my parents worked in Philadelphia and I went to school in New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where we resided. My older brother and sister went to school in Philly, so they were with them. Like, they were close enough. They had public transportation. They could get to them if an emergency happened. But it's a matter of, like, sometimes, my aunt had to drive to come and get me, or one of my grandmothers, had to come
Mm-hmm.
and get me to take me to my parents,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things like that. So yeah, wellness was not centered. Like, what do you need was not centered.
Mm-hmm.
But I do see younger people speaking up more, and I do see that the culture shift. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
speaking of younger working age people. I do see that culture shift coming in terms of, like, yes, that work life balance really meaning something, and
Mm-hmm.
not just how much time you have off. It
Mm-hmm.
meaning, are you functioning
Mm-hmm. Right.
healthily in the work environment?
Yes.
I see
Yes.
that, but what I also push back on is this notion, and that came something that came from that, either whether it was a byproduct or whether it was a catalyst of your coworkers aren't your family. Because my coworkers, you know, not all of them, obviously, but, like, I have built real relationships with people. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
have, they're not my work friends,
Mm-hmm.
like, they're, your work bestie, all that. So I'm like, why would, and I'm thinking, why wouldn't you want to be in community while you're at work? Like, you're literally there most of the time, especially when you work on site somewhere. Like, you don't want to get
Yeah.
along with these
Some
people?
people,
Like,
you spend more time with your coworkers than your family, just because it's
yeah,
literally, that is 8 to 10 hours of your day for those who work full time.
yeah,
Like, you get home at 5 or 6 o'clock. If you have kids in K-12, they get home, they got to be in the bed. That's like 4 hours, and in that time, you like cooking dinner and getting stuff together. Or even if you don't have kids, if you living alone, like you're spending, like your coworkers are your social networks, your primary social networks often,
Yes.
right? And so even if we don't love them, we spend a whole bunch of time with them.
Yeah. So learn to, yeah. So yeah, so I do, I see that, but yeah, I'm going to say it all the time. Like I'm an advocate for things that most of my peers and most of my trusted partners are not. Cover letters and work friends. I have
Yeah.
work friends. Y'all can go be miserable someplace else.
Yeah.
All right.
It's true. It's true.
All right. So we're at 2:45. Oh, and I do want to get to more fun. I want to do some Black History Month
Let's do it.
centered, some Black History Month centered things. But I'm going to start with the questions that I ask everybody. You are Black History, so this counts. All right. So, what is that one song that you turn on, whether you need to jumpstart your day, recharge it, or just not deal with, give you some peace?
I'm a Beyonce fan. So those of you who still don't log off, I knew I had to announce it first.
You have your Renaissance tickets?
No, because I'm on this doggone podcast right here. I gotta prioritize my day.
Not blaming me. Not blaming me.
It's your fault. No, I was playing.
You see, you just said it. You see how she set it up? America.
No, what's funny is that there's on her new Renaissance album, actually, it's the intro, and I think everybody who sent, the intro just comes out, and it's so funny. I didn't even know the name of the song. It's just the hook. It's like, these MFers ain't stopping me. Right. And I just, and it's like, I don't even know what the rest of the song about. I just rock
just
out.
know that part. So I'm going to tell people something. You're probably not going to believe it. But the first song I played this morning was Black Parade. And it's the song that I put on here. So while I am not a Beyonce Beehive super stan, that song, she did that. All right. So
she did. And then the other song off that album that I love is a song called Already. And the premise of the song is that we don't have to aspire for certain things because we're already there. Like, we're already kings and queens. We're already, in the place, we're already. And so I think for a lot of Black people, like, we're very aspirational, of course. Right. And it also comes from a place of wanting acceptance. Right. Wanting to, and it's like, we already great.
I like it.
Right, so let
me see. There's a so Maurice says there's a song called, I don't know if it's FYE or Phi by Toby. So I'm putting this in because that might be, Phi. All right, let's see what this is.
That's the
Okay. All right. I'm going to add that to my playlist.
Yeah, he be going hard for his family. He be going
Another, hard. Be by Common. Yes, that's a good song. Mm-hmm. Be by Common is a good song too. All right. Next question. We're going back to it. I know we had a break from it in November and December. The Sugar Go On Grits.
Mm-mm.
Thank you. Oh, I love a Southern woman. Mm-mm. Thank you.
That don't even make sense.
Thank you. It's a savory food. The only one of us who likes that is Sarah Morgan. She's got that Midwest thing in her. I don't know, but like John P. Key said, sugar don't go on grits.
Sugar don't go on grits.
Sugar don't go on grits.
Look, and I ain't even willing to try it. I ain't even willing to see what they talking about.
We got another vote for Sugar Don't Go On Grits. Maurice Chisholm, thank you very much. All right, so we ended off the business part of the conversation with this, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to give one piece of advice to Black professionals, whether they be early career, thinking about a career, in between assignments, we'll say. Or, just living their best life.
Gotcha. Okay. Everybody don't need to own their own business. That's my disclaimer. No. That's a disclaimer to the advice. That's the first part one.
But that's true.
However, as a professional, you need to incentivize that degree for your own good. So all the knowledge that you put out should not be going to an employer for you to get money back.
Oh,
How much debt did you go into to just get an income from one source? Right?
I'm not paying that. Listen, I'm not
Yeah,
paying
we could
it.
have a whole nother podcast on that because I'm in your same boat.
I tell people all the time, I would like to be referred to as TEDF, tax exempt and debt free. Please leave me alone. Please respect me.
Yeah.
Please respect my preferred nomenclature.
Yes.
TEDF. So
but
yeah,
I said it because, I'm not saying like you got to go out and get an LLC. I'm not saying that, right? I'm saying you got to leave your job, but because you have a profession, because you have the knowledge base, like, especially when it comes from majority people, like, people need to be paying you for that advice, which is also called consultation. People need to be paying you for your time, which is, invitation is not compensation. Exposure is not compensation. That's what it is. Exposure is not compensation, right? If somebody asks you to show up in a space, they're paying you for your time. Stop giving yourself away for free.
Yes. Thank you.
That would be my advice.
Exposure
is not compensation.
It's not compensation.
Yeah, because people sometimes they try to make an agreement with you and say, oh, if you can come speak at my event, then maybe you can get some more clients. Like, no, I'm there. I'm your client.
All right. So you heard it here from someone who has who does both simultaneously. Mm-hmm. You don't have to own a business, but you do need to incentivize that degree.
You need to be pocketing money that does not just come from one source.
And exposure is not compensation. And please don't ask me to buy no more stuff because I'm gonna buy it, but I'm not gonna like. Stop asking me to buy that popcorn. Unless
I don't buy the popcorn.
No, I buy it because don't be sending me a picture of your little child like that. Don't send me a picture of your child holding up a "Will you help me" sign. And
but the popcorn sellers for me are always adults. I'd be like, I ain't buying no popcorn. I know it's for a good cause, but I ain't buying no popcorn.
It's a pyramid scheme. All right. I'm sorry. Double good people. Please don't come and get me. What is the best piece of career advice you did not take or that you took later on?
Oh, that I did not take. I don't Maurice.
He's like, can y'all help? No. All right, send me some caramel cheesy, please. Just put me down for caramel cheesy. I'm sorry. Let's get back. The best piece of advice that you didn't take.
So I'm gonna kind of flip the answer, but I don't subscribe to a culture that doesn't benefit me, right? And so the thing is, like, in the academy, we're it's designed for us to be workaholics, right? I got boundaries, right?
I love it.
I don't lie about who I am and how I operate. I don't detail it and showcase it either, because surveillance is real. I do understand that, but I don't subscribe to a culture, especially one that's designed for and by white men, and think I can fit my Black body into it and my Black lifestyle into it, and so you always get advice that in order to be successful here, you must do these things.
Right.
So what we have to do is we have to find our own routes to success, but at the same time, not necessarily disclose it, because if our success looks the same, but the route looks different. So then it comes under scrutiny. So we just let them believe that we followed their advice, but in actuality, we designed our own way.
I love that. Mm-hmm. I love that. All right. Now, it is February 1st. Mm-hmm. And we've already seen the ads. I got an email first thing this morning from Saks telling me who I should be buying from.
Yeah, I got one too. I got one from Target. They highlighted the black people line.
Thank you. Thanks for telling me. But But yeah, that's one of my Black History Month don'ts. Please don't come to me as a person. Please listen, Shirley, Barbara, please do not come to me telling me what I need to do this month specifically.
Yeah.
Or ask me, do I know about that? Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. What is your Black History Month inside of organizations we're speaking of? Uh, what should they like? What's a do, one don't?
Oh, for Black History Month. All right. One, do leave your Black people alone.
Yes. Yeah,
Don't ask
please.
them for nothing. Don't require nothing.
Yes.
Don't, it's like we want to put on Black History program. Can y'all design it? No. Can y'all show up? Probably not. Right. I just mean, like, don't put additional labor or expectations on your Black people just because it's Black History Month.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
I think what they can do is they can, like, instead of, and I'm not saying this to be funny, but instead of talking to, appraising Martin King, appraise the workers that you have there, right? Give them
Ooh.
praise and show them on an individual, like, highlight the things that they do. And of course, like, don't just do this during Black History Month, of course, right? But build it into your practice. Maybe in the month of February, you make a strategic plan that you build into your practice, how you're going to highlight and appraise the work of your minoritized workers, or maybe workers who do equity work or racial bias work. So kind of build it into your infrastructure in some way. Do that
I
planning in
love
February, but don't
that.
just do it
I
in
love
February.
that. Oh, I gotta fix this. Oh, do all right, and then I don't.
That was the don't. What was it? I think I just said it. Don't.
Okay, so we're gonna say don't bother Black people.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Don't bother us. Leave us
Don't
alone.
don't
Don't
buy, don't
bother us.
don't increase workload or expectations of
Okay.
your Black members. Don't
All
increase
right,
the
we going
workload or
we gonna
expectations.
update it.
Yes.
Don't increase workload
Yes, or expectations of
or
your Black members.
expectations, and then the
The
do
do
is
is
to
to,
highlight
yes,
Black
to highlight
employees.
and appraise, yes. Or
Okay,
praise. Think of praise as evaluate. Praise.
highlight and praise
Mm-hmm.
Black. I'm gonna add this. You just gave me some content, girl.
Yeah.
Ah,
But
thank you.
but not just during the month of February, because then that'll be
Yeah, I
wrong.
put that. Not just. Yeah.
I would make a joke. I was like, the mental, and I say this to white people, I said the mental gymnastics that y'all have to do to do the stuff right. It's like, do it this way, but do this, but don't do it this way. And do it, but only do it during this time. But do it at this.
I don't know if she's on, but Sarah would say, "Don't do a potluck. We not coming. Please don't." Like, I'm not like true story. I worked at I worked at all the large defense and intelligence contractors,
Mm-hmm.
but one in particular, I'm not going to say which one. One in particular did a. They thought they was doing something, baby. They did a Black History Month um, centered menu in the
Mm-hmm.
cafeteria
Mm-hmm.
with fried chicken, uh, collard greens, and watermelon. And don't and the chef don't. I'm gonna say the chef don't work there no more. They work at Panera Bread right now, or they
Mm-hmm.
did the last time I checked. So
Mm-hmm.
that's all we gonna say about
Okay.
that. So yeah, don't do that. We don't want no potluck. But I love your do. I love your do.
Mm-hmm.
Do highlight your Black
Mm-hmm.
employees, not just during Black History Month. And also, please don't do those elementary school. This is Colin
George Washington
Powell.
Carver.
This is Colin Powell. This is like, please don't do it.
Do you know who invented the traffic light? It's like, like, all praise to the man who invented the traffic light, George Washington, all of them. But it's like you said, it's like the elementary part, right? And
Yes. All right.
I be wanting to, like, what's the real history? Like, what was that process really like, right? But
All
that's
right.
a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, it is. All right. And then last question. since we talked about some well, I talked about some bad celebrations. Do you have a favorite um, Black history or way that you know? And I know that you're not, you don't just focus on doing things and highlighting and amplifying and celebrating just during, in the month of February, but is there one particular, Black History Month practice, event, and or book or song or uh, TV show, like something that you're definitely going to do for Black History Month?
Okay, again, your question takes me to a different place.
Oh, I love it. I ask
MLK.
open-ended, multi-layered questions.
Yes, I'm thinking about MLK Day.
Oh,
I'll be careful with how I say this because I love the man. But what I'm not gonna do is service work on MLK Day, okay? Because what I'm not gonna do is have to work on my day off.
Correct.
That ain't fair. So white people who can do Juneteenth don't have to work, but on the day I get off, I gotta do service work. That just don't make no sense to me. So what I'm not gonna do to honor Martin Luther King is do the service work. But I really appreciate the people who out there doing the service work and who doing the marches. Like I'm like, I love all y'all. I do it, but I just on the algorithm. Where on my day off, I gotta volunteer and do service work. It's no other holiday that requires us to work on our day off. But MLK. But I love the man, and I love all y'all who out there who doing the service, and I love all the programs. We need them. I'm just gonna be one watching Netflix.
I know that is right. Yeah. Did you see,
but again, it just goes back to, I've done service work on MLK, and again, like I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but when I go back to the equity of things and the workload of things, right? It is like, I understand what Martin Luther King stood for and all of that stuff, right? But the principle of, we gonna do service work in January, most of it outside, people out there freezing in the snow, stuff getting canceled because of ice, all that stuff. It don't make no sense to me. It don't make no sense to be outside doing service work in January when it's cold. Just don't make no sense. I'm just sorry. I'm kind of going on a tangent about that right now, but
that's Augusta, Georgia. That's because you're from Augusta, Georgia.
I am from Augusta, Georgia. We don't get that snow.
It don't get right. Oh my goodness!
Snow shut us down. An inch of snow shut us down. Y'all be doing amazing things in snow to me. Y'all be like, y'all still walking? Still a parade? It's still a parade.
Not y'all still walking. I'm sorry.
Y'all got the kids out there. They ain't got no coats on. That don't make no sense to us.
Let me tell you, I was so far below the line today, but you have totally just like, you got me so high, baby. Like, thank you so much.
It's been fun.
It has. It's always a pleasure. So Black History Month is going to continue.
Yeah.
Obviously.
We are Black History.
We are Black History. Black History is 365. But we are going to only center Black people on the show this month. Next week, we're going to continue the discussion. Again, a Black History Month, or a Black centered discussion on professionalism and the culture and what that means for us, what we're getting right, what we're getting wrong. So make sure you come back next week, Wednesday, February 8th, again at 2 p.m. live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. And then you can catch the highlights and everything if you need to. But make sure you come back. Want to thank you again, Dr. Kendra Jason.
This was fun. Thank you for giving me
for lending your time. You guys make sure that you do check her out. She has her email listed here, info at info at workforchangellc.com, and or you can go to her beautiful website, work for change I'm missing a letter.
No, it's okay. Workforchangellc.com.
Yes, workforchangellc.com.
Yep.
For that as well. Follow her on the Instagrams, follow her on the Twitter. That's down at the bottom. And that's the Instagram is Work for Change with the number 4, not FOR, the number 4.
The number 4 changellc.com.
Yes, make sure you check her out. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you soon. Did you have anything else you want to add where folks should be reaching out? Anything you got coming up that you want them to tune into?
No, not right now. Just stay tuned. Check into our social media channels. We update it every single day. So anything that's coming down the line, you'll know through our social media channels.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Bye. Thanks.